Sadnam. We are Jen and Ramtin from Heart Center Revolution.
Our intention with this podcast is to share the best of Kundalini Yoga and conscious living with you so you can live a more heart-centered life. Satnam, and welcome to episode 49 of the Heart Centered Revolution podcast. Today's podcast is about one of my favorite things in all of Kundalini Yoga, the Mool Mantra. This mantra is one of the first that I just fell in love with and created a playlist with like 10 different versions of it and just had it on repeat and felt the true elevation that comes with chanting this. As a little heads up, the recording of Ramtin and I's conversation just stopped recording the audio for some reason. So the last 5 or 10 minutes of the discussion is just me kind of wrapping up the conversation. And I'll explain when that happens. And then the pranayama for the end of this episode, we're going to do or revisit left nostril breathing, which is all about calming our nervous system, getting into a state of relaxation. It's great if you're feeling some anxiety or you have panic attacks, if you have trouble sleeping, but I'll get into that more when we get to the pranayama. And then at the end, I'll also share how you can get more resources to bring the Mool Mantra into your life. We have some great resources available to you. So listen to the end. All right, the topic for today's discussion is the Mool Mantra. This is one of my personal favorites. The Mool Mantra is also like an integral mantra for Kundalini Yoga. But my personal relationship with it started in teacher training. So at the very first weekend, I remember one of the instructors saying essentially you don't choose the mantra that's going to inspire you, it chooses you. And so if you're looking for a meditation to do or a mantra to do, you can of course pick one and have that be your practice, but eventually one will just call to you and you'll know oh, this is what I need at this moment in time. And the Mool Mantra was the very first time that happened to me. It was a few months into teacher training and we were learning about mantras and chanting, and the Mool Mantra is what we used. And it just spoke to me so deeply that day I went home and created a playlist of all these versions of the Mool Mantra. And I listened to that nonstop for probably 3 months. And it just really supported my transformation in teacher training and was such a wonderful experience. I just felt so much bliss, driving in my car, doing my errands, cleaning up around the house. It just was the soundtrack for my life for 3 months. And then I hit a point where I still like to listen to it, but it just wasn't what I needed at that point. So I've moved on to other mantras at different times in my life. But the Mool Mantra will always have a special part in my heart for being that first mantra that I just fell in love with and really immersed myself in. And felt the benefits and the transformation of. So I'm really excited to share this teaching with you guys.
Yeah, I also concur that the Mool Mantra for me as well. I had a pretty similar experience with it, that it really did speak to me. Chanting it, especially. Hearing it is one thing, but chanting it does definitely puts you in a different vibration. Just as they say, the teacher appears when the student is ready, and this, when you chant different mantras, and when you're ready for the vibration of that mantra, and the message is sending and being sent to you through that mantra. It becomes more meaningful, and it works in various aspects of how we connect to that mantra, to that energy.
Yeah, it's one of the coolest things I learned about Kundalini Yoga, and something that I like about the yoga traditions in general is that guru is a teacher. And I think in the West, or before I practiced yoga, I thought it was a person, but a guru can be anything: a book, a mantra, a person, a particularly part of a movie, something that's shedding light on the darkness in your life or bringing light to some sort of spiritual ignorance. That's what a guru is. And so Ramtin's this mantra is a true teacher, and such a pure teacher. So let's get into this story. So today we're going to talk about the story of the Mool Mantra, like where it originated from. We'll talk about what the lines mean, and then the general idea of how it helps you or how it benefits you. But of course, everyone has their own experience, and so you'll have to experience it for yourself. So let's start in the beginning with the origins of the Mool Mantra. All right, so the Mool Mantra originated from from Guru Nanak. And so Guru Nanak was a healer and a yogi, and he was the founder of the Sikh lifestyle. I think the religion came later, but kind of some of the main Sikh beliefs of the Sikh religion founded with Guru Nanak. And so he was doing his spiritual practice by the river, or I believe it was in the river, and he was gone for 3 days. And so people thought he had died or drowned or something happened to him. But what happened is after 3 days, so the story goes, after 3 days, he came out of the river and he had this ecstatic exchange with the divine. And he had this radical download or channel of what it means to be human, and human in terms of a human being connected to the divine, and what our true nature is as a spiritual being having a human experience. And so he comes out of the water. It is said that his aura was so vibrant that everybody could see it, not just people who have that skill to see auras, but that just anybody could see his aura. And he was full of such divine light, and he had this teaching to share. And he wanted to share it with himself and with his students. And so you'll hear in it that he says, "Oh Nanak." And some people misinterpret that as though we are like praising him, praising Guru Nanak, but really this was him talking to himself. And so we'll get into it when we get there in the mantra, but I'm getting ahead of myself, I guess, because I also want to highlight that while Guru Nanak was kind of the source or kind of one of the beginnings of the Sikh religion, he is not seen as a god. He is a human being who had this divine experience and had this divine channeling and shared that with people in the form of this mantra, which is used in the Sikh religion and also in Kundalini Yoga.
So I want to sort of, again, second what Jen just described as far as how these words and these mantras were channeled. Is that, as human beings, we always have that connection is always available. Now, when we hear the stories from the ancient stories that, as human beings, we were able to do things that this day and age seems to be outrageous or unbelievable or just fantasy. As who we are, who we are as human beings, as energy sources, and we are just, and everything about us is just energy, defining energy, what energy is for us. Then, we are able to transform that energy in a way that we could connect to different frequencies, different vibrations. And therefore, for us to be able to sort of create that connection, we have to distance ourselves from the noise, from the distractions. That's why we hear any prophet for any religion, they had to kind of go away, for some amount of time. So we, most of the time, as we hear the stories, we perceive the actions out of this world, the chosen one, and it's just again just a story, just a fantasy that may or may not be real. I think the hidden message, not so hidden a lot of times, but if we not just take the story just as face value, is that there is for us to be able to connect to that source energy, there is certain filters, if you will. There are certain level of consciousness we need to sort of stabilize, and we need to sort of go beyond. And that connection is within us already. It exists within us. That message, that connection, that purity is within us. And we just have to kind of allow that connection to just surface for us. Now, as far as the Sikh religion, religion is pretty much the meaning. The meaning of the word religion is going back to our origin, is connecting to our origin. However, many religions now are pretty much they're industrialized, if you will. They are commercialized as for marketing purposes, for their own for their own purposes. But the religion gives us that purity that we have within us, realizing who we are as human beings. A lot of the stories that are in many books, many religious books, they have a lot of things in common. And that commonality is who we are as human beings, that connection that we have with our heart, through our heart, to the source. And one thing I love about this, I don't practice the Sikh religion. I'm not a Sikh. I'm a Kundalini Yoga practitioner and teacher. However, the purity that is brought to this practice through the mantras that have been practiced and recited and in that religion is also part of this practice of Kundalini Yoga. And the purity I'm talking about is that is truly is kept its sacredness in a way that is truly for us to create that pure connection through our heart center. That's the best way I could describe it. That is not, there is not diluted and convoluted with our mental aspect of who we are. Again, we need every aspect of who we are to put things together for ourselves, to understand, to accept, understand, believe, and connect to whatever message we're hearing. We have to have every aspect of ourselves at work, the logical aspect and the non-logical aspect. But this message that we hear, obviously because it's in a different language, we kind of have to have the meaning explained to us. But the sounds, the nods, the sounds, the energy, the frequency that you connect to with the chanting of these mantras truly is beyond logical understanding.
Yeah, I wanted to say that. And then just to highlight something or clarify something Ramtin said, in case you're unfamiliar, he mentioned the nod. It's NAAD. And that is the literal vibrational sound of any word. And so every word has a nod. And it's the sound that a word makes has an impact. And so that's kind of something I wanted to highlight as I shared the story of Guru Nanak and how the Mool Mantra supposedly came to be. It doesn't matter whether you believe anything about that story. This mantra can still work for you because it doesn't work on belief. It works on the nod, the literal sound vibration of the syllables that you chant or that you listen to have a meaning and have an impact on your glandular system, your nervous system, your psyche, your soul. And so your belief, like, you don't have to be religious, like you don't have to believe that story about Guru Nanak. There isn't any belief required. Just sit with this mantra and be open-minded and be honest with yourself. If you're a skeptic, I would just say, sit with this mantra, be open-minded and be honest with yourself about how the vibration of these sounds makes you feel. And that doesn't, again, it's just, it doesn't require any sort of belief. Kundalini is a practice. It is not a religion. So no belief is required. But I think the backstory is interesting. And there are often questions about some of the overlap between Sikhism and Kundalini Yoga. And it's because these practices come from the same religion and even have some teachers kind of intertwined who were part of the development of both. And that's why there is a little bit of overlap, but they are not one and the same. And to practice Kundalini Yoga does not mean you're practicing Sikhism. So we kind of got on a tangent there, but I think it's an interesting one that comes up if you practice Kundalini enough. It comes up. So let's get back to the Mul Mantra. And I just love this quote. I'm going to be honest, I'm taking it straight out of the textbook because I couldn't say it any better. But this quote tells you the impact of this mantra. So again, regardless of your belief, the impact of the Mul Mantra is to help you recognize the exalted state of awakening that is described in the Mul Mantra. And if we act in alignment with this pattern of universal truth, then you live on Kundalini risen with awareness as your guide. And you act not from your ego, but from the deep currents of your soul and your life. You are awakened in intuition, intelligent, and in touch with your instinct. And so if that doesn't describe living from your heart center, I don't know what does. So I guess my shortened version of that would be that this Mul Mantra helps you tap into your truth as a divine being and just settle right into your heart center and all the power and insight and guidance and ease and joy and flow that resides there.
Yeah, to me, again, this what Jen just read and described tells me that as a human being, the most value I present in this lifetime is the value I give from my heart, the love and the compassion and the kindness. Truly, I believe everything else is given to me. My thoughts, my creativity, everything that, especially technologically, everything that has been created, innovated, is being given to us. We channel those things, so there's some connection there. But the originality of what we present and what we bring as human beings, the true value that's been truly uh, not valued and subsided is our kindness, our compassion. That's what makes things come alive. That's what true creativity is driven from. Any industry, any place you want to look at, any kind of business, anything, any creative person in art and science and everything else, the true drive, the true uh, inspiration behind it is from the heart center. But of course, everything else has to be there. Every other component has to be there. So this Mul Mantra, to me, again, to us, I'm pretty sure to many Kundalini Yoga practitioner, it's the connection to your heart center. It's a connection to your true self.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. All right, well, I will review the Mul Mantra. I'm going to say the whole thing in its original language. I believe this is Gurmukhi, which is a language around that time. Most mantras are in Gurmukhi and some are in Sanskrit. And I honestly don't always know which one, but I believe this is in Gurmukhi. Okay, so Ramtin's going to share the mantra in its original form, and then I'll explain the translations.
Okay, so the Mool Mantra goes Ong Kaar, Satnam, Karta Purakh, Nirbho, Nirvair, Akaal, Moorat, Ajoonee, Saibhung, Prasad, Jap, At Sach, Jugaad Sach, Bhee Sach, Nanak Hosi Be Sach.
So beautiful. Now I'm thinking back to when we first learned this in teacher training, and it seems so foreign, right? These sounds, if you're primarily English speaking and you've never interacted with these consonants and sounds before, it can sound so foreign and kind of hard to grasp. And I remember practicing so much so that I could chant along with the songs I was listening to. But just expose yourself to it, and the sounds get more familiar. And now they just feel like such a deep hug. Like it just feels so beautiful to hear.
Yeah, the pronunciation is really, again, the movement of the tongue, the mouth, all that is part of the pronunciations. All that is part of the movement of the energy and, movement of the nod within you.
Yeah, the chanting of it is such a deep part of practicing a mantra. So I'll do just a basic translation of each line, and then we can dive a little bit deeper into them. I think the repetition is helpful. And then again, it's written out in your description for this episode, so you can visually look at it, which is helpful. All right, so this is where the original recording of Ramtin and I's conversation just stopped and stalled. So I'm taking over from here on to do the translation and the deeper discussion of the Mool Mantra. And there are many translations that are available. This just happens to be our favorite. I think it's the most general. In my understanding, it's the most true to kind of what they meant by the language. All right, so here we go. So the first line is Ong Kaar, and that translates to sprouting from the one creator. Everything is connected. So this is the idea that every entity on this planet or on this plane or even in the universe all comes from the same creator. So it's not necessary to believe in any specific creator. The idea is that we all come from the same starting point. It can be Big Bang, it can be God. So whatever your religious views, your specific personal religious views or lack thereof is, this idea is that we all come from the same origin. Everything in this world comes from the same origin. And this involves some kind of assumptions and some beliefs around that. So the idea that this universe is one without division. It is all one thing. There is one creator, one act of creation, one force of creation that is in every single thing. We are all connected. So all things in this universe are connected by this universal creation. And we are creative consciousness. So we were all created by the same thing with the same intelligence or force, whatever word you want to use. And that intelligence is within each and every one of us and each and everything in the universe. I mean, that's a lot for Ong Kaar, for 3 words. But again, Ong Kaar means sprouting from one creator. And then what I just said are kind of all the implications of that. All right, the second line is Sat Nam, which you've probably heard a lot of. That translates to this truth is my identity. And so the ramifications of this line are kind of twofold, but in the context of the Mool Mantra, it's saying that the truth of my existence, the truth of who I am, is Ong Kaar. It is this connection to the universal creative force. That this universal creative force literally is the truth of who I am. And the truth that I am connected to every other entity in this universe, that is the truth of who I am. And so when you combine Ong Kaar and Sat Nam, that's the impact. All right, next line. Karta Purakh. So this translates to doing everything from this light of truth. And so this is saying that we are creative beings, that we are created and we are meant to live our lives and move moment to moment in this lifetime and in other lifetimes, if you believe in reincarnation, from this truth, from this accessing of creative consciousness, from this perspective that we are connected to every single thing in the universe. And in fact, we are all one. We are different facets of the one. So when we act in accordance with our Sat Nam or with our truth, we are in alignment with our own personal divine wisdom, guidance, dharma, and we are also in alignment with that of the whole universe. That's why it feels so good and right when we're able to get there, when we're able to be in alignment. All right, the next line is Nirbho, Nirvair. And this translates to fearless, without blame, judgment, or revenge towards the self or other. So what this is getting at, it's not like a mandate, like you have to live this way. It's kind of the opposite. It's saying that when you live from this Sat Nam of the Ong Kaar, when you live from the truth, that you are a piece of divine creation that is connected to all of creation, then you can be this way. You can be fearless. You can be without blame. You can have the absence of judgment for yourself and for others. And so it's not saying that those are morals that you should impose upon yourself. It's saying first get in alignment with your Sat Nam, with the true perspective of your life, with your heart center, right? Like I'm adding that as heart-centered revolution. That's the angle, that's the entry point that Ramtin and I like to talk about. But it's getting at this point that when you get in alignment, then you enter this state where you can be fearless and you can be blameless and you can be without judgment or revenge towards other people or towards yourself. All right, the next line, Akaal Moorat, Ajoonee, Saibhung. This translates to always in continuum, not defined by birth or death, to be timeless. And so this is kind of like being formless. You're not limited by any specific concrete definition. So to elaborate a little bit further, the part of the line, Akaal Moorat, is a pattern or existence that goes beyond death. And so it's the part of us that is us and that exists before we're born and exists after we die, after our body dies. And if you don't believe in this idea of reincarnation, or that like our souls choose to come into this lifetime and then have multiple lifetimes, you can also think about a pattern that exists beyond death, almost like this connection to your ancestors. So there's a lineage that comes before you, and there's a lineage that comes after you that's emotional, mental, spiritual. It kind of, you inherit this and then you pass it on. So if you want to think about this pattern that goes beyond this single lifetime, and you don't really resonate with the idea of reincarnation, you can think about it in that term. So we're still on the same line of Akaal Moorat, Ajoonee, Saibhung. So Ajoonee brings this idea that this is by grace. And so we are not limited by life and death. And this is not an accident. This is not unintentional. This is an intelligent part of the creation. It's by the grace of the creative force of the universe or the design of the universe. And it includes this idea that we were sent here by the divine creative force and that we chose to come here, like our souls chose to come into this life at this time. And then Saibhung is this really interesting juxtaposition that kind of implies that we are sovereign and autonomous. So we are our own entity. Like I am my own entity as Jen. I have my own soul. I have my own spirit. And yet we are connected and part of the whole. And so it's this seeming duality that actually comes together. It's not a duality at all. It is both and. I am an individual soul in this body, experiencing things through my perspective, and I am part of the greater creation, and we are all one. Both things exist at the same time in perfect balance and grace. And then the next few lines are kind of when Guru Nanak is talking about the teachings. And so the next line is Guru Prasad. And that means this is the gift of light that I received by the grace of the infinite through the darkness of my ignorance. So he's saying, he's just claiming to the people he's sharing these teachings with, like, this is the magnificent, enlightening teaching that I received, and it helped bring me out of ignorance and into awareness. And then the next line is jap, and that means to chant something repeatedly. And so this is kind of like Nanak reminding himself and telling other people, like, let's repeat this. We need to repeat this teachings. We want to integrate it into ourselves. He wants to remind himself and never forget the wisdom of these words and of these teachings, because it was such a point of transition for him. And he's also saying, like, by repeating these teachings, you get to experience that connection with the infinite consciousness. You get to experience this, the Ong Kaar, like your oneness with everything. The way to experience that and to tap into that vibration is to repeat the Mool Mantra, which are the lines that we've set up until now. And then there's a series of lines that kind of go together. So Ad Sach, Jugaad Sach, Bhee Sach, Nanak Hosi Bhee Sach. And so these translate to, this is the primal simple truth, like this whole, the Ong Kaar, Sat Nam, all of that. But that is like the foundational truth, that this has been true for all of the ages, that it doesn't change. It's true right now. And then when he says Nanak Hosi Bhee Sach, some people misunderstand and think that as we're chanting to Nanak as though he's a deity or a prophet and in a worshipful sense. But that's not my understanding of it. That's not how I was taught. I was taught that if you think about it from Nanak's perspective, like he's the one who wrote and shared the Mool Mantra. And so by him saying Nanak, he's talking to himself. He's saying, oh, Nanak, oh, self, this is the eternal truth. Like this is the truth that unlocks all the other truths. This is the truth that is the primal thing, the primal focus of enlightenment, of the spiritual journey. Like he's so excited that he got this enlightenment, and he's talking to himself like, oh, don't forget this. Keep repeating it. If you keep repeating these words and these vibrations, you're going to stay in this state of connection for your life or whenever you want to. And so when you're listening to the Mool Mantra or you're reciting it and you get to the line where it says Nanak Hosi Bhee Sach, you can put your own name in there, or just you can think as though you're talking to yourself. So it's not meant to be worshipful of Nanak. It's meant to be, so when I listen to this, I'm like, oh, like it's a reminder to me of, oh, Jen, like this is the eternal truth. This is the truth. So that is the Mool Mantra, like the translations and breaking down of each of the line. But really the bulk of it, what I think like the heavy lifting is Ong Kaar Sat Nam. Essentially, we all come from the same creation, so we are all one. And then Sat Nam, this is the truth of my existence. Like the capital T truth of who I am at my very core. That's kind of the main thing. And then the other lines just add a little bit of, detail, kind of flush out what that means a little bit for us. And then one thing, if we, just to be a little bit technical, technically speaking, and I alluded to this a little bit, but the Mool Mantra goes up into the word jap. So it's Ong Kaar, Sat Nam, Karta Purakh, Nirbho, Nirvair, Akaal, Moorat, Ajoonee, Saibhung, Prasad, jap. That's technically the Mool Mantra. And then after that, Ad Sach, Jugaad Sach, Bhee Sach, Nanak Hosi Bhee Sach. That is often referred to as the Mangala Charn. And then in Kundalini Yoga practice, those two things are often put together because they're delivered at the same time. They were kind of created at the same time. But technically speaking, the label Mool Mantra is the first part, and the label Mangala Charn is the second part. And most often, if you hear the Mool Mantra, you're going to hear the Mangala Charn with it. But sometimes you'll hear Ad Sach, Jugaad Sach, Bhee Sach, Nanak Hosi Bhee Sach in another context, like without the whole Mool Mantra with it. All right, that wraps up our discussion of the Mool Mantra. We hope you enjoyed it. At the end of the episode and in the episode notes, the description, there will be a link where you can download a freebie, like a printout, a visual of the Mool Mantra with the mantra itself and then the direct translations that we use. And then we're also sharing a wonderful playlist of the Mool Mantra, so you can listen to it and kind of get in the vibration. So you'll find the link for that. I'll share it verbally at the end of the episode, and then it's in the description if you want to check it out now. All right, so for our pranayama for today, we are going to do left nostril breathing. If this is the first time you've heard of the nostril breathing, just be prepared that it can seem a little odd, but just give it a shot and see how it works for you. Keeping skepticism is fine, but keep an open mind and be open to evidence that supports that this stuff works. So just as a basic primer, our bodies have two nervous systems. We have a sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight, and we have a parasympathetic nervous system, which is our more relaxing, restorative one that kind of puts us into sleep, helps us rest. So the sympathetic nervous system is kind of like the gas. It's go, 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 like turns things on and is activating. It has the sun energy behind it. And the parasympathetic nervous system is kind of like the brakes. It gets our body to slow down, to be in a more restful state. It's kind of what we use to go to sleep at night, to feel more relaxed, to feel at ease, to feel that peace. And so that's the parasympathetic nervous system. And so each nervous system is associated, believe it or not, with one of our nostrils. And so our right nostril is associated with our sympathetic nervous system, which is the more activating one with sun energy. Our left nostril is associated with our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the cooling, calming one, the more moon energy. And actually, as we go throughout our day, there's like a mucus plug in the bridge of our nose or in that general area that moves from side to side, and it causes one nostril to be more open and activating than the other one. So if you test right now, if you test both of your nostrils, you're going to notice that you can kind of breathe more clearly through one than the other. And I should say, to test them, you would just use your finger on the outside of your nose and just push one nostril closed and try to breathe through the other nostril alone, and then do a couple breaths and then switch and try the other nostril. And you'll notice one has like a more free, the air is moving more freely. And this is even if you're not sick, it's just the natural state of our being. And then in about 90 minutes, it should switch. And so it's just one of the cycles that our bodies go throughout the day. And then as, if our right nostril is more open, we're in a more energetic, active state. And if our left nostril is more open, we might be a little more tired, a little more restful, that kind of a thing. But the good news is you can use your breath to manipulate which nostril is dominant. So if you're like trying to go to sleep and you're really active or anxious and you just can't get to sleep, then you can actually use left nostril breathing to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, get your body to calm down and help you go to sleep. So now that we've given your mind enough of the why this might work, although it's okay to be skeptical, let's give it a shot. And so we're going to get into our pranayama position, sitting up nice and tall. Let's bring our shoulders up, back, and down. Lifting up the crown of our head, tipping our chin down and back just slightly so you feel a slight opening in the back of your neck. Resting your hands in your lap or on your sides, anywhere that's comfortable to you. And if you're comfortable, closing your eyes. And we're going to begin with just a few long, deep breaths. Inhaling through the nose. Exhaling through the mouth. Just letting go and getting centered. Let's do one more like this. Inhaling through the nose. Exhaling through the mouth. And then just gently bringing your right hand up to your face, using your thumb to gently close your right nostril. So on the outside of your nose, just pushing your nostril closed. And then taking an inhale through your left nostril. And exhale. As you inhale, noticing that your belly expands. As you exhale, it contracts. Inhale. Exhale. Continuing to breathe through your left nostril. If you'd like something more to focus your mind on, you can focus your eyes at your third eye. And you can mentally recite Sat on the inhale and Nam on the exhale. Inhaling Sat, exhaling Nam. Continuing to breathe through that left nostril, starting to elongate your inhales and exhales if you can. Especially those exhales when we're trying to relax, making our exhales longer and slower can help facilitate that. Okay, after your next exhale, releasing your hand back into your lap, taking a deep inhale through both nostrils, suspending the breath gently with your body, squeezing your body like a tube of toothpaste, moving the energy up your body, just very gently though. Exhale and relax. Relax your body, relax your face. Relax your breath, relax your mind, and just check in with yourself, your mental, emotional, and spiritual state. How did this period, this couple minutes of left nostril breathing impact you today? When you're ready, gently blinking, open your eyes. All right, so that was left nostril breathing. It's a wonderful thing to do if you're feeling anxious, or like I said, if you're having trouble going to sleep, or when you have insomnia, you wake up in the middle of the night. Give it a try. Most people find it helps a lot. All right, so this is the end of our 49th episode. I can't believe 50 is coming up. So as we said before, there's some great resources to help you integrate the Mool Mantra into your life. If you just go to heartcenteredrevolution.com/Mool Mantra, it's MULMANTRA. And if you go to that link and you enter your email, we will send you a PDF, a pretty PDF that has the Mool Mantra on it, as well as the basic translation. And then you'll also get a link to an Apple playlist and a Spotify playlist of some of our favorite versions. But if you're searching, if you want to search and kind of find your own or find more, some people spell it MUL and some people spell MOOL. And so you can search both spellings. All right, that's it for this episode. We're so happy to have you here. We love you so much. And don't forget to be revolutionary. Sat Nam.